All of you to give a warm round of applause as we bring in Fran Darmis.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you. Can you all hear me? All right. Okay. Good. Throughout my career, I've had a lot of different presentations that I've been able to just have the opportunity to do, and a lot of them have been here at Georgia Tech. And I have to tell you, compared to other venues, Georgia Tech students ask the most questions of any group that I've ever given presentations to. In fact, at one time when I was here, I actually had to sit down on the edge of a stage for about 45 minutes to answer questions. So thank you for being so inquisitive. It's really good. I was thinking about this because a friend of mine is an author, and we were talking about questions, and he said that in his first book, the publisher said, look, I want you to go to about 10 different institutions. And it was a book on programming languages, anywhere from a symbol language all the way through. And but in order for you to get around, we're going to give you a driver. Don't worry about it. People don't know you. It's just your first book. They don't have your picture. So just go give the presentation. So he went. The driver sat in the back of the room. He gave the presentation, which was really kind of boring presentation. Then he gave another presentation. Then he gave another presentation. Then he gave another presentation. And the driver was like going nuts. He was like, this is like crazy. And after about the 10th time, the driver said to him, look, if you don't change this presentation, I'm going to give it because I've heard it the whole time and I'm going to give it. And he said, okay, the next presentation, I'm going to give it at Georgia Tech, just like this. And so nobody ever asked the other guy questions at all. So he comes and he gives the presentation. The driver gets the presentation. The author sits in the back of the room. And the driver did an amazing job, gave the entire presentation because he just memorized it. And then as luck would have it, he was ready to walk off the stage and someone raised a hand and said, in your book on programming languages, could you comment on what DNA computing is going to do to programming languages? And the driver froze. He was like, oh my God, well, how could I answer this? He said, for an institution as really famous as Georgia Tech, I cannot believe how simple that question was. I mean, it was so simple that my driver in the back of the room can answer that question for you. So I don't have drivers in the back of the room. I do have a 1984 graduate, by love of my life here, Julie Summerford Johnson, Georgia Tech graduate, so she can translate anything that we have that you can speak. She was, I think, one of the, the last survivor of the drowning thing? The drown proofing that used to happen here at one time. And I also have my editor, John Fayed, who's helped me write the 3 books, who makes me look a lot smarter than I actually could be. So today, I want to talk about 2 things. One, how you need to take control of your career in order for you to get meaning at the end of your career. In the past, when I was first joining companies, your career was not in your hands, it was in the company's hands. And the company had a ladder. If you do this, and you do this, and you do this, and you work for us, and at the end of 30 years, you'll get a nice gold watch, and you'll be retired. And that went away. I mean, for you all in this generation, you don't even think about that. When I joined AT&T way back when, they actually said this. They said, we have not laid off anybody in 100 years. And if they would tell somebody that now, they would get shot. I mean, they was like, are you kidding me? You downsize every other year. You downsize every week. You downsize everything. But that was true in America when I was kind of joining the company. And in around 1980, things changed. We started getting foreign competition in America. We started getting a whole bunch of things happening that we didn't understand. And we started downsizing in order to be competitive on the global stage. And with that downsizing, the psychological contract of you work for me, you stay here in this company, and I will give you that gold watch at the end. Just listen to what we're doing. Take this job, take this education, take this, and this will all work out great. And it changed. The psychological contract went away. And from 1985 on, we who are in business and you who are looking at being in business or already in business had to take control of your own careers. Now, it was interesting because nobody told us how to do that. So we decided, and people like me decided, that we were just going to just try it out. We're going to do something that I call job surfing. And so I want to talk to you about my job surfing experience, because from that experience came a methodology that I want to share with you that you can use personally to make sure that you end up with a meaningful career. I got a call 2 weeks ago from a person who, if you're in, as you are in the technical discipline, you would die to have his job. He's the head of North American engineering for a Fortune 10 company. He said, Fran, I'm 42 years old. I've been there for 10 years. I make millions of dollars. Everybody says, what's wrong with that? This is great. I don't really know what to do next. I don't know if this, I mean, I've got 20 more years of work. Should I go to a small company? Should I go someplace else? I don't feel like I have meaning in what I'm doing. And from that, I thought that what we have to look at as we work on our careers is what's going to be meaningful to you. So I'm going to show you how my career, and as Josh said on the introduction, I've had a lot of different career-ending type of jobs and career building type of jobs. So I'll talk to you about, here's my job surfing adventure. And I can walk through this because it will inform you as to why I came up with a methodology for myself that I since documented in my book, Creating an Intentional Business Life. I started off at AT&T as a young COBOL programmer and rose up the technical ranks very fast, only because if you didn't, you were fired. So when you went to various training things, if you didn't get an 80%, you got let go. So it was very motivating for me. And so I went up the technical ranks fast, and I led the team that did the software that actually created the AT&T divestiture. You know, I was walking through your, you call it the trading room. There's a hallway there, and there's like little kind of things, events. And I was like, I was there. And I wasn't at the beginning of the founding of the, I mean, I wasn't with Alexander Graham Bell on the phone. But after that, I was almost every place that you have there, the divestiture, the Glass-Steagall and Wall Street and all the other type of stuff, which is kind of reflected in here. The reason why I put what was going on there was because they were all adventures. So what you're going to find out in your career is you're going to go places and they're going to be adventuresome things to do. Some of them are going to be technically interesting to do, and some of them are just going to be like nuts. Like, you know, I'm flying into Washington, D.C. I was running all of AT&T's data centers. I had 1 million square feet of data centers, 20 different data centers around the United States. And I'm reading the Washington Post, and in there it says, and I'm in charge of data centers, all right? In there it says, AT&T night tour data center employees arrested for green card scheme. I'm on the plane going to that data center, and I'm looking like, what are they doing? My enterprising night tour data center people decided to make an extra little bit of money by contacting women overseas who wanted to get a green card and arranging for them to be married to some of the people in the data center, only to be divorced a month later so they would get a green card and they would get paid for that. And it's illegal. It taught me a couple lessons. Number one, if you're going to be a leader, you better keep everybody pretty occupied on your night tour in your data center, because something like this is going to happen. The second thing was if you're going to lead, you're going to have to give everyone a reason to do something. You have to give anyone, you have to link them to the strategy of the company. And if you don't, they will go off on their own. So that was kind of lesson number one for me. I left AT&T to become president and chief operating officer of a company that was originally a time-sharing company. Time-sharing was like web services before web services. It was really a company that we changed into a software company. the lesson that I learned there in my little kind of surfing job was had a single owner. And a single owner company is an interesting thing. If you get a job when you leave here, or if you're working for somebody who has a single owner, just be wary, because a single owner treats a company as if it's his or her Tonka toy. If he wants to go in the backyard and take the wheels off, he can do that. It's his company. And you may think that that's kind of weird, but everyone that I've talked to who have worked for a single owner company has that as a problem. And I learned a little bit of a lesson from that. The interesting thing here was number 3, which is Salomon Brothers. Salomon Brothers in the late 1980s and 1990s were considered the king of Wall Street. If you've seen the movie, The Wolf on Wall Street, it was there. If you've seen the movie, The Big Short, it started there. If you read the book Liar's Poker, and I hope you haven't because it's pretty raunchy, it was true and it was there. And it was there when I was there. Let me give you my first day on the job. This truth. I'm in charge of all technology, managing director globally. I get a phone call and it says, the fixed income trader is dissatisfied with his response from the ticketing system. And I said, okay, I'm going to have somebody go right down there because that's my first day. I was really psyched. And they said, no, you don't understand. He's really dissatisfied. And I said, well, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And he goes, no, you don't understand. He just picked up his phone and threw it through the front of his PC. And I said, oh, all right, I'll send 2 people down there. That was Wall Street. That was the era that we were going through where everything was crazy, but it was amazing. We brought Unix operating system to Wall Street more than anybody else. I talked here about the data center drug cartel at a data center in New Jersey, and found out through an employee attitude survey that people in my data center were getting cocaine in the data center. And I found out that through a bunch of different things that it was being stored in the underneath the raised floor by the cleaning people who were their delivery mechanism. By the way, these are all true stories, believe me. And so I said, all right, guys, there's 200 people in the data center. I said, okay, we're testing everybody next Friday. If you're using, you have to tell me, and I'll put you in a program, and you won't be fired. And if you're not, if you don't tell me, and you show up, you're going to be fired. And so out of 200 people, 22 showed up, told me that they were using and were on a program. And then another 15 afterward were fired. So 35 people out of 200 were using cocaine in a data center, processing about $200 billion of trades every day. So that was a little scary for me in my adventure. I put Lou Ranieri there. If you've seen the movie Big Short, it starts off with Lou Ranieri. We did the technology which enabled Wall Street to do mortgage-backed securities. That was what we were doing. And it was first done there in the early 1990s. And that mortgage-backed securities became the foundation for the big, huge 2007, 2008 almost destruction of the financial system in the United States. And so when I saw that movie and I saw Lou Ranieri, who was a managing director like I was, walking in the picture there, and saw that people were going to really be upset about that, I was like going down in the chair like this. I know nothing. I don't have anything to do with that. But so then after leaving Wall Street, I went to a little company called NMI. It was bankrupt at the time, and since I was a Wall Street egomaniac type person, I thought I could do everything, and I can turn around a bankrupt company, and no, you can't. I spent 8 months there fighting with banks, losing tons of money, becoming humble in the best way possible, and we finally turned that off. And then I went and became the CIO at Citibank Bankers Trust and NASDAQ. in 2-year successions on technology transformation. And from that experience, wrote the first book, the CIO Handbook, on how to do technology transformation. It is really a step-by-step handbook on technology transformation in large companies, how to engage with the senior leadership team, and how to actually lead technology through the transformation, through the business. So that's nice. That's all nice. Everybody said, boy, isn't that a great career? I had 20 more years left for me to do some things. And I was like, what's really going on? I mean, if this was my last day and I was doing all of this stuff, what would I think about this? And so I have worked with so many people who are job surfing. Job surfing is you jump on a job, it's like a wave. And you say, well, this is a great wave, I can do this, whoosh, and you have fun with it. And then it brings you to a point of shore. Then you get another wave, whoosh, and you bring it to another shore. And by the end, you're 42 years old, and you find yourself on the shore or in a job, and you're saying, what is this all about? I've given up pieces of my life. I have given up time with my kids. I have given up everything, and what do I have? If this were my last day doing what I'm doing right now, would I feel good about it? Is this what I want to be known for? And so these are the things that really bring you to a realization, it brought me to the realization that I had to do something else. And so I, for myself, developed a career meaning type of methodology. And I'll talk to you about it. It starts off by asking yourself these questions. You know, when you're been in business for 10 or 15 years or 20 years, you ask yourself these types of questions. What you can do before you start your journey of 20 years is asking these questions now. Because if you do this now, you won't be sitting there saying, is this all there is? Is this all there is? I've given my life up to this. Yes, I've learned things. I've made lots of money. I traveled. I did all this other stuff. But is this all there is? Is this linked with my spiritual goals? Is this linked with my family goals? What is this all about? Because business will suck you in such a way that, and it's not being anti-business, it will suck you in such a way where meaning goes out of your life. Where, you know, the code at Wall Street is, he who dies with the most toys wins. It was all about making money and doing the different types of things. But that's not meaningful. It wasn't for me. So what did that mean for me? Since my path was trial and error, I decided to write down what would I do if I had to do it over again? What are the framework of my decisions around positions that I would take, jobs that I would do that would be different based on that? And how would I do that? And so this was what became the philosophy for my book, The Creating an Intentional Business Life. Really it was, if you worked from the end of your business life. Now, for many of you, that's a long distance. But I'm telling you right now, it's going to be here quicker than you think. I know people who are mentoring you, and you know your parents are telling you, it goes by real fast. I'm telling you, it goes by real fast. It really does. And so you have to think about the end. You have to think about, if this were my last day in business, would I be satisfied? Would all of my needs be met? Will all the needs of the people around me be met? What have I given up to do that? So here is the strategy. Here is the way my book talks about. You start with this. If I were to ask you to write a diary entry as if you were being recorded on the last day of your business life. Somebody had the iPhone out with the new 3 different things to get a broad look at you and all. And so if they were recording you, what would those activities be? With a couple parameters around it. Number one, you can't describe the job you're doing. You just have to describe the activities. And the activities that you're doing have to be meaningful. It has to be meaningful. It has to be aspirational. It has to be something that you're going to be proud of in those activities. I'm going to walk through I have hundreds of these in my desk drawer because of the people who I've helped through this whole process. So it really is important for you at this stage of your career to ask yourself, what do you want to be known for? Because guess what? It's going to happen no matter what. If you go on automatic and you surf, you're going to be known for whatever. So this is your opportunity to write something that you want to be known for. So let me give you an example of people. These are actual people who wrote end of career paragraphs. A guy his name is Brian, came up to me and said, Fran, I'm mid-career, 35, 38 years old. I'm working for Nokia. I'm in charge of technology in the mobile space. They want me to go to Finland. I don't want to go to Finland. I just got married. I have a new family. I have stepchildren, and I want to stay in the U.S. What should my next job be? And I said, Brian, I want you to write your last job, not your end job. And I want you to write a job write a day as you're being recorded and tell me what the activities are that you are working on that day to make the next 30 years all worthwhile. And everybody, when I say write the paragraph, I can do that. And it takes about a month. If you're really going to true to yourself, it takes about a month because you're working through this as you go along day by day by day. So Brian did that. He said in his end of career paragraph that he was submitting a paper to the Department of Energy on the smart grid and mobile technology. And I said, why the smart grid and mobile? He goes, I want to do something important to the United States. He said, I've been in mobility, and yeah, people talk on it, and yes, it's great for emergencies and text, all this other type of good stuff. But I think the smart grid is where mobile could really do something for it. So he said, great, that's your last day, okay? Now, let's unearth a job or a position that allowed you to do a paper to the Department of Energy. Let's look at people who've submitted them. So we looked at 3 or 4 people who submitted papers there, and we looked at their backgrounds. What was their background? What was their educational background? What was their career background? And we took that, and the way this methodology works is if he was doing that at age 62, what was he doing at age 59? What was he doing at age 56? What was he doing all the way through to where you are today in 3-year chunks? Why 3-year chunks? Because 3 years is a really good thing for, it's first of all, in technology, it's the retention, number of years of retention of any one particular job. But I always looked at, if you have 3 years, you have 1 year to learn something, 1 year and maybe one and a half years to produce something, and then another half a year to take a victory lap and look for another job. And so, and the same thing if you're going to get your PhD or if you're going to get your master's, a 3-year chunk is a legitimate little kind of business life chunk. So he did that. He actually mapped out from the end of his career, based on the people that he saw, the backgrounds that they had. So in his case, he had to first get some knowledge of what smart grid was all about. And the first thing he did was he found out, he wouldn't have looked there without, found out that Nokia and Siemens had a joint venture around smart grid and mobility. So he joined that group, and he worked there for a couple of years. He also knew that he had to understand public policy if he was ever going to do this. So then he took a job in public policy in Washington, D.C. And then he knew he had to get his master's degree to have credibility on that. But he knew he couldn't do it while he was kind of full-time working. So he became a consultant, a contract engineer to AT&T, and came, and this is the truth, Georgia Tech, to get his master's in engineering here for 3 years. He sent me a text with the diploma on and said the end of career paragraph is beginning to come to fruition. He went from there to a company in Denver to do a more deep dive into macro architecture. And now he's working in California designing the smart grid framework in California. The stuff really works. I don't have enough time to go through all of these. To the speech at the National Science Foundation was a person who started off as an architect for me in technology and went through a path. His end of paragraph was making a presentation there. We found out what the background was, and the path that he had to take was he had to get his PhD, he had to work for a venture group, he had to become a consultant all the way through. And he mapped that all out. And it did. And about 4 years after he put this together, I saw on Information Week a grid, and it was the hottest consultants in the US, and Jeff, this person was in the top right-hand corner. Then left, became a member of Atlantic Partners Venture Group. And last year, I made a presentation at Stevens Institute of Technology. And I had lost contact with Jeff. And they said, I understand you worked at the Salomon Brothers at Wall Street. He said, yes. Do you want to meet Dr. Jeff? He's our interface between Stevens Institute and the government for all of our grants for Stevens Institute. And I went on to see Jeff, who said, the path works. So it's not as prescriptive as I'm giving you a demonstration of. It is directionally correct. And you have to do this at this point in time in your career. Believe me, if you do this, you will not regret it. So that's the diary entry, starting it, going backwards. So if you've done this for yourself and you've mapped out your career plan, at some point in time in your career, you are going to be in a leadership position with people working for you. And you're going to face this. Here is the average tenures in my discipline, which is technology. The average tenure of CIOs are 4.3 years. People think that CIOs means career is over, but I mean that's the average tenure. The average tenure of the technologists working for the CIOs is 2.1 years. So how are you going to retain these people to work for you as a leader? The short answer is you're not. But what you really want is not really their retention, you want their attention. You want the ability to have a mind share while they're working for you. And what better way to do this is if you have, as part of your leadership bucket of things that you do, doing a career plan with them based on the methodology I talked about. Because guess what happens? If at that 3-year period of time, you could do something which is a part of their long-term meaning of their career, they will be the most productive person ever working for you. Let me give you an example.
You said you started off as a COBOL programmer, and which is pretty low on the totem pole in most most IT organizations. But then, over a relatively short period of time, you became the CIO, and then ultimately CIO at other places. Could you just sort of share with us, maybe personally, how you did that? I mean, how you could go from an entry-level position and then to running a major organization over. Well, did you have good mentors? Was it some super hard work, or what's the secrets of your success?
Well, from the technical standpoint, when I joined AT&T, they said they needed this new thing called COBOL programmers, and we were going to take a 3-month course in learning COBOL, and that's and I didn't realize that we were tested weekly, and if you got less than an 80 on the test, you lost your job. I mean, there was 12 of us that started, 8 finished. And I was 21 years old, I was recently married, and I was like, I got to learn this stuff. And I got into it better than I ever thought I ever could. I mean, I took a Fortran course at Rutgers, and I thought, well, this is really boring. And I dropped it. All of a sudden, I became an expert COBOL programmer. And then, very interesting, I got into assembler language because there was new technology coming out, and we had some stuff to do that we had to do it. And then I got exposure. We were doing a community project on adoption, and I got exposure to senior level people by doing the technology associated with that. And then I got to the fastest technology level in AT&T, faster than anybody. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And somebody who was became my mentor, I hated him at the time, said, I want you to leave that and go run a call center so you learn about leadership. And I was like, what? What? I'm in the most marketable position in the world, and you want me to go run a call center with 80-year-old people taking changes of address? Are you kidding me? I was like depressed beyond belief. And I learned leadership there because guess what? I was the highest level person they ever wanted to talk to. When I was a project leader in technology, everybody saw people 7 levels above me. But when I was there, I was the boss, and I had to learn how to be the boss. And I did that, and I learned a lot. And then had the luck of rewriting the stock transfer system as part. I came back out of that call center thing, promoted to a district manager, and rewrote in my team the stock transfer system for AT&T. Then I was selected to do an internal master's program with best instructors in the world coming to us to do a master's program associated with Pace University, but all of them were from Harvard, Princeton, all over the place, and got my master's internally for that. And then from there it was called back in as the divestiture happened because we needed 7 stock transfer systems, and we had 1, and we needed 7, and I was called on to lead that. And then we did that through a separate subsidiary, and that was it. And then I went to Bell Labs, and if you ever want to be humble, try to work at Bell Laboratories when I worked at Bell Laboratories, because the guy next to me won the Nobel Prize for the creation for the Big Bang Theory, and and I was like, oh my goodness. So I learned through osmosis through that. So that's how it happened. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Kendall. Thanks so much for coming. So a lot of your business plan, life planning involves self-reflection. And clearly you've done a lot of that in your lifetime and over the course of your career. Is there a practice you have for setting aside time for that, daily, weekly, monthly, and what does that look like?
That's a great question. For me, I was lucky. I had the opportunity to work alongside of some amazing people. One of my best friends is a guy by the name of Ken Blanchard, who wrote The 1 Minute Manager and a whole bunch of other types of stuff. And I had seminars with him, and actually then worked alongside of him for that. And so some of the formal training that I had was around how do you get in touch with what your value system is. So I really believe in that. I believe in daily meditation. For me, it's daily prayers. But it's really important at this stage of your life to understand that you are built with a certain set of values. You got that from your parents and all. And now you're gathering other sets of values, and to kind of mark down what are your values. I do a whole seminar on value-based leadership as one of the key elements. And I put a whole thing out there on what does it mean to follow your values? I mean, really, what does it mean? And so I recommend that you actually put on a piece of paper, what are your values? I mean, with no kind of, if your value is money, great. Although I have to give you a small aside. Money really isn't a value. I did a presentation at Wall Street, my first presentation at Wall Street. You have to remember this was heydays. And we were going to be a value-based organization. So I went to the thing, I said, here's my values: communications, integrity, all the stuff, community service. And then I had 900 people in the crowd. The guy raised his hand in the back room, Mr. Darmis, where's money? And I said, money isn't a value. And everybody laughed. And the guy in the back of the room said, Mr. Darmis, this is Wall Street. Money is our only value. This is why we're here. So I used that. I said, all right, I want you to communicate, and I want you to do this, I want you to do this. I'm cutting everybody's bonus in half. And when you communicate and you show integrity and that type of stuff, you'll get your bonus back. And they said that wasn't fair. And I said, I'm just using one of your values. So we did that. But anyways, I do recommend you do that. I mean, really take time. You're old now. You're able to do this. You've got values, whether you articulate those values or not. There will be a time in your career when your values are going to be challenged. That's a time where you really have to come. Someone talked about an aha moment. I was responsible for building, and this is September 11th, so it's something really near to my heart. I was responsible for building 7 World Trade Center when I was at Salomon Brothers. That was my building. It was under my control because that was our headquarters and it was all technically based. And I was sitting, after we built it, at the 47th floor of 7 World Trade Center. And I was looking down on Wall Street while our private chef was making me pasta for lunch. And I was making lots of money. And I looked out the window and I said, you know what? I really deserve this. And it was like a cold slap in the face from my Ashtabula, Ohio, first person going to college background, where it's like my mom, who was not alive then, said, if you do this, you're going to give yourself up to that. And I left 2 weeks later. Because it was just, I knew if I was going to do that, I was going to be adoring money. And I walked away from lots of money for other things. So you will be challenged. And so just keep, whatever you do, whether it's faith-based or anything else, to know and understand and be aligned with your values. And then live your life that way. I mean, you only got one life. So, yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Terry Blum. I have 2 questions, actually, but I might not have time, so I'll start with one. What do you think the implications of the Business Roundtable top CEOs saying that shareholder value is important as that
Stakeholder value is important?
That stakeholder values is as important as shareholder values. Is this really a philosophical shift, or will it change how we live?
Yeah,
what does it mean?
I saw that, and it reminded me of a company I once founded. We had this discussion around the table, and we said, are we here for employment or are we here for net income? And at the end of the day, if you want to be okay to your stakeholders, you have to have an ongoing enterprise. And if you have to have an ongoing enterprise, you have to satisfy the shareholders. So you don't have to ignore the stakeholders and only please the share owners, but you have to be able to have ongoing enterprise in order to pay attention to the stakeholders. I mean, Enron doesn't have any stakeholders anymore. I mean, so if you're not in business, you don't have the stakeholders. So I think what they're trying to reflect is you can't ignore stakeholders. I mean, they're part of your customer base, they're part of your employee base. If you ignore them for the mighty dollar, you're going to lose. So I get that. People have taken that as saying that they're equal in terms of what they're doing. And at the end of the day, the CEOs, I've been on enough boards, they're the boss. The boards are the boss.
Thanks. I'm with the Institute for Leadership and Entrepreneurship, and our philosophy is a servant leadership philosophy, values-based leadership. And so my question is, how do you, so much of what you're talking about starts from the inside and goes out. And I don't have problems with the undergraduates doing that very much, but the MBA students are really resistant to the hard inside work that it takes. They much rather learn a new skill in finance or ITM than do the hard work that will set them up for their lives. Do you have any suggestions for ways that they might be motivated earlier in their lives to think about the things that you're suggesting?
Well, first of all, life is going to intervene. And all they have to do is look around and see that people who haven't done that have not been as successful as they want to be. That's the first thing. The second thing is there's a plethora, and you know this as well as I do, there's a plethora of data that says that value-based companies are more successful than non-value-based companies. And so if they believe that to be true, then they have to be in touch with their own values, or else they're going to join a value-based company which is at conflict with what their inner values really are. So it's important to know what your inner values are so you can be in harmony with what a good value-based company is all about. So, and that's what my 2 cents would be. Josh, I'm running over. I apologize.
Those were some good questions, though, so it's all right. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and maybe just one last round of applause for Fran.